Comment 779 I mainly use not for students who don't know how to multiply out brackets with foil or the smiley face, but rather to remind people that that's what they're supposed to do. If you get comment 779 a lot, even just a couple of times, then you should use the traditional remedy of including it in big bold lights in a summary revision poster to remind you that you should do that. And if you make it a super lot, then you should put it in like a top 10 list of mistakes that you jot down at the start of an exam, and which you can continue to consult every couple of questions to make sure you haven't made that mistake, or for example if you're stuck. Now I've got the video going, let's just remind you what it is that I'm talking about. I'm talking about a situation like this. Doesn't matter whether it's algebra or square roots, change it to minus actually, or just good old-fashioned numbers. What this says is that you can multiply out the brackets by forming 4 pairs. The smiley face says that you can form a left eyebrow, a right eyebrow, a nose, and a mouth. So you just form 4 products and stick plus signs in between them. Now, if there's any doubt at all that you're going to get the arithmetic right, so for example, sometimes people can get confused because there's so many pluses. Instead of doing 2 times 3, they do 2 plus 3. Then just write the 4 products without doing any arithmetic or anything. So in this example here, I'm doing left eyebrow, 10 times 3. Right eyebrow, 2 times 5. Nose, 2 times 3. And mouth, 10 times 5. Stick plus signs in between, and you will definitely get at least 1 mark, and then you can go and simplify them, etc. Now in this one here, if I was going to follow that advice literally, I would actually change that negative to an addition, because I changed that minus to the addition of a negative because that's the same thing. And now I would just do the same thing. This is me being super careful. Left eyebrow, or in foil, the first things, root 2 times 3, root 2. The outer things, root 2 times negative 7, root 2. The inside things, 5 root 2 times 3 root 2. And then the last things, 5 root 2 times negative 7 root 2. That's the super cautious approach, and then you just go and put plus signs in between. So that's what comment 779 says. It just says you get 4 pairs of products with plus signs in between. Now that is probably a bit extreme. I was so cautious I didn't even omit my multiplication symbols. And it was super cautious to change that to the addition of a negative. I'll show you a middle ground approach. So for example, a minus root 2 x plus 3. Okay, so you go a times x, ax, left eyebrow, right eyebrow. You can do this, you can say a negative times a positive is a negative, so this will definitely be a negative. Technically that's a minus sign, but amounts to the same thing. And you can just write that next to that. There I've switched the order because multiplication is commutative. The nose, a negative times a positive again, so that'll be a negative. So root 2 times x. And then finally, so that was the nose, and then finally the mouth. A positive times a negative, so that'll be a positive. I know that's technically a plus, but amounts to the same thing. And there we go. So comment 779 talks about 4 pairs with plus signs in between, but as a shortcut, when you're experienced enough, by thinking, am I doing a positive times a negative, or a negative times a negative, or a positive times a positive, should I put plus signs in between or minus signs in between? Just one final example. 2 minus x, 3 plus 4x. So here's the cautious approach. Left eyebrow, or first things, 2 times 3, positive times positive. Right eyebrow, negative times a... Actually, let's change this to another negative. Negative times a negative is a positive, but I'm scared I'll make a mistake with that, so I just write it next to itself, next to that, and that'll definitely be a product. Okay, nose, a negative times a positive. So just this next to this. And then finally the mouth, a positive times a negative. A positive times a negative is a negative. 2 times 4x, I'm terrified I'll get that wrong. So I write 2 times 4x. There I could leave out my multiplication sign. Here I can't, because otherwise people will think it's 24. And now you've got at least 1 mark, and now you can do the simplifications in the next line. Getting 1 mark is always valuable. Remember the famous statistic that in the 2012 GCSE, if all the students had got 0 out of 4 or 0 out of 5 for the big questions, if they just managed to get 1 out of 4 or 1 out of 5, another 20, 25 kids would have crossed the grade boundary they were nearest to, so getting an A instead of a B, or an A star instead of a A, or a B instead of a C. So getting 1 mark just by forming these 4 products is definitely worth it.